Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. It was a weird scene in Washington today. President Trump, you'll remember, ran for office promising to fix immigration, make good deals, and in general do a better job than the corrupt, incompetent lawmakers he said were wrecking the country. And he was right. They were wrecking the country. And yet today, in a remarkable twist, the president held a televised meeting with the very swamp creatures he once denounced. He told them he trusted them to craft immigration policy without his input. Then he suggested he'd be willing to accept any deal they produced, even a bad one.
When this group comes back, hopefully with an agreement, this group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement, I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good.
At one point, the president agreed with Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California that it would be wise to handle the question of DACA separately before negotiating any meaningful reform of our broken and dysfunctional immigration system.
And I don't know how you would feel about this, but I'd like to ask the question, what about a clean DACA bill now, and with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure like we did back, I remember when Kennedy was here, and it was really a major effort, and it was a great disappointment that it went nowhere.
I have no problem. I think that's basically what Dick is saying. We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Would you be agreeable to that?
Yeah, I would like to do that.
Key allies very close to the president on immigration told us this afternoon they were shocked by what they saw in that meeting. It was a completely different Donald Trump from the one we watched on the campaign trail just 2 years ago. How different? Let's put it this way. Trump's rival from the 2016 race, Jeb Bush, who was on the far left of Republican sentiment on immigration questions, tweeted these words in response to the meeting, quote, "Encouraged the president is seeking bipartisan solutions to our immigration challenges." In 2016, Donald Trump ran on the premise that America's borders ought to be real, that the repeated amnesties of the past have betrayed voters, and that this country deserves an immigration policy that looks out for American interests rather than those of foreign countries. Almost nobody in Washington agreed with him at the time. Almost nobody in Washington agrees with him now. Congress is full of people from both parties who believe that the point of our immigration policy is to provide cheap labor to their donors and to atone for America's imaginary sins against the world. They couldn't care less about immigration's effect on you or your family. Yet these are the same people the president now says he trusts to write the immigration bill, the one he'll sign no matter what it says. So what was the point of running for president? You'll remember the president also ran on his skills as a negotiator, and he clearly has skills as a negotiator. But where were they today? The president signaled he'd be happy to legalize hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants now, and then at some point in the future tackle all that other stuff, like making sure they can't bring millions of their relatives from the third world along with them. That's not much of a negotiation. Amnesty for DACA recipients is the only leverage the White House has. Once the president agrees to let them jump to the head of the line, ahead of millions of other people hoping to come here legally, the negotiation is over. At that point, why would Democrats agree to anything? Ending chain migration, the diversity lottery, supporting a merit-based system that might actually help America? No chance. The Democrats' goal is to import more Democratic voters, and by any means necessary. Once they retake the Congress and the presidency, and if Trump betrays his base in immigration, that'll definitely happen, it is over. Say goodbye to borders. They are done. Keep in mind that the top Democrat in the House recently thanked illegal aliens for sneaking into this country. That's how Democrats feel, and they're not pretending anymore. Being a Trump voter isn't always easy. It's like rooting for the underdog in baseball, the old Chicago Cubs. On one level, there is pride, the pride that comes from doing something that fashionable people consider insane, and that's a good feeling. But there's also some disappointment along the way, and honestly, there's some embarrassment. But you silently bear it because you know that when they finally win the World Series, it'll be worth everything you went through. Every sarcastic dig from your brother-in-law at Thanksgiving will seem small by comparison. In the Trump presidency, the World Series is this immigration bill. It's the big payoff. It's the whole point of the exercise. and they're not allowed to blow. Jorge Ramos is an anchor at Univision News and Fusion Television, and he joins us tonight. Jorge, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I never imagined that I would be on Fox News listening to you criticizing President Trump on immigration, but thanks for inviting me.
It's a matter of the principle, and this is the principle, which is that a country has a right to determine who enters it and who gets citizenship, who votes, who chooses the government. That's what a country is. And I can't imagine how you could publicly disagree with that, and yet you seem to.
No, what I also agree, Tucker, is that we have an immigration problem. I think we all agree with that. There are 11 million people who are here illegally, and they are here because of us. They are harvesting the food that we eat. They're building our homes. They're taking care of our kids. And we have to find a solution. And President Trump, surprisingly, I don't trust him, I don't believe him, but surprisingly in this meeting, he said he wants comprehensive immigration reform. You and I remember since year 2000 that whenever we say comprehensive immigration reform, that means legalizing 11 million people in this country. And if the president wants to do that, I'm all for it. However, I'm not sure that tomorrow President Trump is going to come with a tweet or with an interview and change again.
Let me just stop and challenge your premise, which is deeply disingenuous,
sure.
And that is that it's somehow our fault, corporately all of our fault, that 11 million people snuck in the country are now demanding to become citizens.
It's not.
Hold on. It's not. No, that's not true. It's not because of me. It's not because of most people I know. It's because a small number of employers wanted to pay less for labor, and the Democratic Party wanted new voters. I didn't do that, and there's no reason that I should have to live under a government controlled by people who came here illegally. Why should I?
They're here because of you and me. It's simply a matter of supply and demand. They're here simply because there are jobs for them, and also, we have to admit, because in Latin America they make maybe $5 a day. And they can make that exact amount of money here in just a few hours. But we are responsible for them. And
so
then,
we're responsible. So in other words, so because this is a successful country,
you and I are responsible. We are responsible for them.
Because we have taken the time to build a functioning country, a clean, safe country with a working justice system and a thriving economy, then we are somehow morally required to let anybody who wants to come here come, and we can't complain about it? How does that work exactly?
No, because every time you go to a hotel, every time you go to a restaurant, they're helping you. They are working for us.
No, they're not working for me. They're working for companies that want to pay less. That's why they hire them, and the owners of those companies make a lot of money, and we get to pay higher taxes in order to support them living here.
Just for a while, but for instance, the National Academy of Sciences recently conducted a study, and they concluded that all immigrants in this country, they contribute more than $2 billion every single year. This is an immigration surplus. And not only that,
that's an absurd number.
You can laugh about that.
I'm laughing because I know a lot about the subject, and that's a fake number.
Those are the facts. Should I trust you, or should I trust the National Academy of Sciences?
Right,
I'm sorry, but I believe the National Academy of Sciences on economy.
But I'd rather than throw around fake numbers, I'd rather get to the principle, though. You make a fair point, which is supply and demand is driving this. There are people who want to hire illegally, for sure. You're absolutely right there. It's not me, but some employers do. But why should American citizens, who by and large are not responsible for illegal immigration, have to live in a country where people who sneak in illegally get the vote and determine who runs their government? I don't understand. No other country would allow that.
We all benefit from that. And then, of course, on comprehensive immigration reform, if it's true what President Trump is proposing, and I don't think he's telling the truth, or that he even understands what's happening here, then they might have the opportunity eventually, in decades from now, to vote or not. That's not the issue at this point. We're not even discussing comprehensive immigration reform.
It's very much the issue for me, an American citizen. I don't want to be governed by people who snuck into the country. But let me ask you this. If you come here illegally, now you're demanding that people who came illegally have the right to be here legally and get citizenship. Why should those people be allowed to bring their relatives from a foreign country? Where does that right come from?
About chain migration. Now everybody is using the term chain migration.
Well, it's the majority of immigration is chain migration, so it's not a small thing.
It's called family reunification.
Call it whatever you want. It's the same thing.
Do you enjoy spending time with your family, Tucker?
Well, look, I'm not going to pretend. Look, this is too serious a matter to participate in theoreticals. Let me just ask you: why, if you sneak into this country, should you have a right to bring your relatives?
Let's just say that you do. Well, immigrants do too. They do enjoy spending time with their families. And since 1965, and this was inspired by JFK before he died, since 1965, the policy that we have here in the United States favors family reunification and bringing those who have special talents to this country.
But you're missing it. But no one is arguing, by the way, that DACA recipients have special talents. Nobody's even more DACA recipients.
No, they were too young for that.
Okay,
they were too young for that.
But that's not relevant here. But I'm just saying, I know it's the policy. Why should it continue to be the policy? That's the question. Why is it a wise policy?
Because I think it's a wise policy. I think it has worked well for this country. Just see the number of CEOs, immigrants or sons of immigrants, who are leading major companies in this country. I think when President Trump uses the term chain migration, those are code words. He's really saying, you know, I don't want more immigrants from Asia or Latin America coming to this country. I want to stop that. And I want to make America white again.
What you're doing is throwing... because what you're doing, rather than engage in an adult argument using reason, you're accusing people you disagree with of bigotry, which is a little much, actually, considering that you're demanding that Americans who were born here let in people who snuck in illegally and all their family, and if they say anything about it, they're racist.
Let me just say that chain migration,
I get the game, actually, and I'm sick of it.
Migration or family reunification,
doesn't matter. The principle's the same.
That's the law of the land.
How would you feel if the United States exported the poorest 10% of its population to Mexico, exported the poorest 10% of its population to Mexico, completely changed the mix of Mexico, the politics of Mexico, and undercut the wages of Mexican citizens, and then if anyone complained about it, said, well, you're just a racist, would you think that was kind of a stick-up?
I understand what's happening in Mexico, and it's terrible what's happening in Mexico. I cannot defend, and I do not defend what's happening in Mexico. Absolutely not. Was that your question?
No, that's not the question, but we're out of time, sadly. But I know that we will meet again. All right, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tucker.